So, big welcome to the BusyBee Boxing channel, podcast episode 14. This channel is really in place to bring you boxing news, views, and opinions. Appreciate we've been away for a while, but it's going to be worth the wait, trust me, as we've got a lot to cover tonight. Before we get started, a bit of housekeeping. If you're new to the channel, please support us by subscribing. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at BusyBee Boxing. And whether you agree with the opinions on here tonight or you completely hate us, please give us a thumbs up because it gives us extra visibility. So on today's panel, it's the magic duo, I guess. It's myself and Money Mike. We might have Idris joining us a bit later, but for now, you get the two of us. And today's topics will be covering, obviously, the most pressing topics of the week, the Dillian Whyte Saga. Also going to be talking a bit about the kind of deaths in the sport and how that's relevant to PDs. General heavyweight scene, because we've been away for so long and so much has happened, and also the welterweights as well. Likewise, there's so much happening in that division. So let's get into it. Let's not waste too much more time. The Dillian Whyte Saga. Where do we start? So we had obviously the Dillian Whyte versus Oscar Rivas fight last week now. Obviously, Dillian Whyte was victorious in a pretty straightforward fight. And then what emerged early on this week is that he potentially failed a drug test, or allegedly failed a drug test. And there was a private hearing between himself, Eddie Hearn, UCAD, the British Board Boxing Control, and potentially VADA. And then he was cleared to fight. Now, this cleared to fight term is a bit controversial, seeing as, VADA obviously being a drug testing body, and UCAD likewise don't have the authority to clear anybody to fight. And that's the narrative that Eddie Hearn's been spinning all week, and that's the narrative that Dillian Whyte's been spinning with his official statement, which he put out the other day. So that's what we know up until this point, but it seems very, very murky. So I want to kind of dive deeper into it. So Money Mike, over to you. What's your thoughts on the whole situation? Because it's a bit shady. It seems like there's a lot of dodgy stuff going on at the moment, mate. You're on mute.
I just think it's quite bizarre how it all come about, how they can get clear to do a fight beforehand, and then Rivas is trying to deny all knowledgeability of even knowing what was going on. So I'm just thinking, well, hold on, how can they even be allowed to fight? And then they're trying to say that his B sample is being tested as well. So it just seems like a big, massive farce. And then Mr. Gravy Train Eddie Hearn, he's trying to cover all angles and just trying to make it and say, look, wait for the facts to come out before people start jumping to conclusions. And then Dillian come out on Twitter and said that his legal team's looking into it. So it just seems like a bit strange, really, a bit of a strange one. And obviously Dillian got tested and got banned for 2 years not so long ago. So then they're talking about now, if he gets convicted, he's got an 8-year ban. So I'm a bit confused, to be perfectly honest with you. I just don't know. And it always seems with Dillian, there's always everyone's just trying to get him not to be a contender. I mean, he's been mandatory for how many years now? He's had 12, 13 straight fights. Everyone that they've put in front of him to try and get him in his way, he's took him out. So he should have got a title shot ages ago. So yeah, it's a bit of a strange one.
Yeah, mate, it's all a bit dodgy in my opinion. It just so Dillian Whyte obviously got that ban. What was it, 4 years ago for Jack 3D, which was an over-the-counter supplement, and he pleaded his innocence. He kind of played it dumb and said at the time, he was looking for a workout supplement, and he wasn't aware of the kind of nastiness within Jack 3D, and naively he bought it, and obviously he got popped for PEDs. Oh, he kind of got a pass on that because there's been lots of examples after that where Dillian Whyte had to go at Lucas Brown. If you remember in the build-up to their fight, he was calling him all sorts for failing 2 drug tests. When Jarrell Miller got popped recently, he was going in. He also has had a history of having to go at AJ as well, and going in at and accusing AJ, and I think they had to settle something out of court because Dillian Whyte was basically dragging his name through the mud. But it's a bit ironic now that Dillian Whyte gets popped. My issue is, Mike, and just a question on this. I don't think it's morally right that Oscar Rivas, because his team are coming out and saying they weren't aware of this. Like, they had no clue that Dillian Whyte failed a drug test. Like, do you think morally that's right, that Dillian Whyte and obviously Eddie Hearn had knowledge before the fight that, well, there was something potentially in Dillian Whyte's system, but Oscar Rivas or the WBC weren't notified?
No, it's just strange. It's bizarre. I mean, obviously the WBC, they're the number ones, but this just begins to show to me that the WBC are more corrupted than what people are letting on, because obviously they control everything. They're the main governing body. So how can they stand by and say, yeah, okay, we'll allow you to fight, but there's a possibility that your sample is going to be negative, and we're going to test your B sample, and yet they still allow the fight to go through. Now, like I said before in the thingy, what happens now if Rivas got killed in a ring? That will open up a whole different new can of worms, because they knew that he's been tested, but yet he was still allowed to fight.
And this is the thing, it's the moral thing, right? Obviously, we had 2 deaths on the weekend, so it's not the best timing for a kind of drugs cheat story. But it's what I don't get is, so apparently, Mike, the WBC weren't aware. So the WBC came out when this news broke and basically said they weren't aware of this. They hadn't been notified. Apparently, this private hearing was between Dillian Whyte, Matchroom, Eddie Hearn obviously represented them, the British Board Boxing of Control, and I guess Wilder and UCAD. And the outcome of the hearing was that Dillian Whyte was cleared to fight. Now, whether that was because it was trace elements, whether that was because there was some sort of other deal, I don't know. But there's a few kind of conspiracy theories going around. Some of them are absolutely ridiculous. I read one online that said Al Heyman basically colluded with the WBC to basically get Dillian's test to come up dirty, which I think is ridiculous. But one of the ones that I've read online, and just knowing Matchroom and Eddie Hearn, if you think about the kind of heavyweight landscape and the boxing landscape in the UK, there's a lot of pressure on Eddie Hearn to deliver fights in the UK, because obviously he's put a lot of focus on DAZN. Obviously AJ went over to the US, which we'll touch on a bit later, and got spanked. And he's had a lot of pressure from Sky Sports, from Adam Smith, head of boxing at Sky Sports, from Barney Francis, head of Sky Sports, to deliver better shows, because the quality recently in the UK from Matchroom has been shit compared to BT Sport and what Frank Warren's serving up. So my theory is that Eddie Hearn and Dillian Whyte were probably aware. Obviously, Eddie Hearn had to make a call. I don't know how much influence the British Board Boxing Control had, but there was probably a lot of pressure on Eddie to go ahead with the fight. But for me, morally, that it's just wrong, mate. It's, as you said, if Oscar Rivas had, been, seriously injured, what would have happened then?
Exactly. They'll be the first one to start condemning it and be like, "Oh yeah, now we've actually got one death through like a reasonable cause." It's just a bit confusing how the fight was. I mean, me personally, I don't think the fight should have gone ahead. Personally, if they knew, obviously, what the consequences could have been, because like I said, if he did die in the ring, that would open up a whole new can of worms. And then what's Dillian Whyte looking at, a manslaughter charge in a boxing ring? Come on, that's just crazy.
It's crazy. It's crazy. What's your thoughts, Mike, on if this is proven? Because Dillian Whyte, I don't know if you saw the other day, he came out. So he came out and said he was going to release a statement, and then he released a statement on Twitter basically saying he can't talk too much. It's in the lawyer's hands. It was all very scripted, well written, very non-Dillian Whyte like. Dillian Whyte, he's the first one to jump on social media and have a go at Deontay. It's exactly, Mike. Like, have a go at Deontay Wilder, have a go at Tyson Fury. Like, he doesn't pull his punches. But the statement he made the other day was,
he'd been silenced.
It's in the hands of my lawyers. And to me, when I see people make statements like that, it's a flag in my head. Guilty. Because if there was no, obviously there's always a kind of no smoke without fire. But Dillian Whyte, if there was nothing in it, why didn't he come out and just quash it?
Exactly, you're going to shout your innocence to the hilltops. Anyone that's going to listen, and obviously Dillian Whyte's got a lot of listeners, so he's going to be the first one to start running up his gums and said, "No, wait, mate, no, it's a farce. I'm innocent." But he's been like hush hush now. And when has ever Dillian been exactly quiet, coming forward? If he's got something to say, he's saying it regardless.
It's all just very dodgy, and there's been a few things that come out. So I don't know if you saw the other day. There was in the post-fight press conference for Whyte Rivas, Eddie Hearn and Dillian Whyte were having a conversation. I don't know if you've seen that video, Mike, but
No.
it was picked up. It was picked up by a microphone, and somebody basically put a transcript together. So someone amplified the audio and put a transcript together. And allegedly in this conversation, and I heard it and I've read the transcript, what was basically said between White and Hearn. So White said something like, it's been a crazy couple of days. He hasn't been able to sleep. Hearn said something like likewise. Then White said, I've done 2 tests in 2 days, and then, 1 in a million. And then Hearn came back with a response basically saying, I had a statement prepared, ready to go. And then, we were cleared or something like that. And then White said it's crazy. So clearly they're having a conversation about the whole situation. But it just seems very weird. For me, the problem I have with this is that regardless of whether Dillian Whyte is proven to be innocent in this, or guilty, or it was a trace amount, or whatever the situation was, Oscar Rivas, as his opponent, had a right to know. That's it. Like there's no if, buts, or maybes. Like that if Eddie Hearn, because I saw an interview with Eddie Hearn the other day. Now he's over in the States for the Hooker Ramirez fight. If it's not part of the process, just morally, Mike, do you know what I mean? Like you're gonna tell the opponent, like even if you don't have to, you're gonna give the opponent the option, right?
Yeah,
To know.
Of course.
And Eddie Hearn hasn't. So to me, what does that say about his character?
Yeah, it just seems a bit dodgy, very dodgy.
If White is proven to be guilty, Mike, obviously he's been very vocal about PD cheats. Obviously, as we said, he's had a go at AJ, Lucas Brown, Big Baby Miller. What kind of punishment do you think? Do you think it's career over? Firstly, do you think there's any kind of way back for Dillian if he is proven, if the B sample comes back dirty and there is a case to be heard? Do you think there's any way back for him?
No, I think they're going to start. No, because look, if he's done everything that they've asked him to do to get a mandatory shot, he's been the WBO #1 contender for the last 2 years. He got shafted when they made Parker WBO mandatory, and then he got shafted again when they made Dominic Brazil #1 contender due to the fact that he had the same camp as Wilder. They share the same management. He got shafted then. So, and he's gone on how many fights unbeaten since his only defeat to Joshua? He's unbeaten since. And so if he's in a strong situation and he's still getting shafted by the WBC, not getting the mandatory title shot, and now he's done this, he's got no chance now. He's got no chance. I don't think. I just think this is a perfect opportunity now just to get Dillian out the picture. I mean, he's 30. All right, where's he going to come back? I don't know. I don't see how. Well, I don't think he'll be finished, but I don't think he's going to get another title shot. He's just going to be fighting the middle rank opponents now if he does get found guilty.
It just hurts Matchroom, doesn't it?
It stains Matchroom now because it makes Eddie look like, mate, you've got no control over your fighters or something like that.
Yeah, especially in light of the kind of AJ situation and AJ losing to Ruiz. The rematch there's no guarantee that AJ is going to win that fight. We'll talk about that a bit later, but there's no guarantee AJ wins that fight. And then all of a sudden, I know Matchroom have a lot of heavyweights in their stable. They've got co-promotional agreements with, the likes of Usyk and Hergovich and Joseph Parker. The list goes on and on. They've got a lot. Chisora's in there. But all of a sudden, the power shifts over to Mr. Frank Warren, doesn't it? If Dillian Whyte's proven to be, dirty for Ped'S.
Frank Warren somehow always seems to come up smelling of roses. It doesn't matter what he does, he always finds a way to land on his feet.
He always survives, doesn't he? He's just like I read on his column the other day. I think he's got a column for TalkSport, and he was talking about this, and he was talking about like morally, Rivas had a right to know. But you think about Frank Warren, like how long the guy has just been trucking away, and he's been in bad positions. Obviously, Box Nation was a bit of a flop. Got the new deal with BT Sport, but Frank Warren's been around for years, and he's just outlasted other promoters. And now you could potentially see the same thing happening with Mr. Old Eddie Hearn.
No, exactly.
It's crazy. It's crazy, but I don't know what to make about the Dillian Whyte situation. For me, I'm reserving judgment until the facts come out. I just think there's a lot of people online bashing him. I don't think we can do that until the facts come out. I hope the facts do, but I hope this is not like do you remember when Fury got popped and then there was a lot of like court cases and stuff like that, and we didn't really hear anything, and then all of a sudden there was a statement basically saying, "Oh, he's cleared to fight." For me, that's dodgy, and then it brings into question the kind of testing situation in the UK. Is it thorough enough? Like, is it dodgy? Because in America, it's straightforward. Look at the example with Jared Miller, right?
Yeah.
VADA obviously caught him. They flagged it to the New York Commission, not banned, but pulled from the fight instantly. There was no if, buts, or maybe. It was put in the public domain. Everyone was aware. Billy Joe Saunders, likewise, when he got obviously popped for using that nasal spray, VADA notified the Boston Athletic Commission. Bang, pulled from the fight. There was no grey areas. It wasn't like there was a private hearing or any of that stuff. It just makes me think, like, I guess it's a question for you, Mike. Do you think the testing standards and procedures in the UK are as good as they are in the US?
No. I think they're too lenient. I think you can't have one rule for one and one rule for other, because it just sends a message out. Yeah, you can do it. We'll ban you for, like, I don't know, 6 months, and then you're back in it. I mean, I remember a good few years ago when Ricky Hatton got done for cocaine. He got a 2-year ban, which means he didn't fight for 2 years. And I think his first comeback fight wasn't against Mayweather, and obviously he got absolutely battered. But looking on that, you can't have it one rule for one and one rule for other person. It's got to be either you all sing from the same page, or it just seems like they just pick and choose who they want to vindicate at the time.
The problem I have with UCAD, who are the obviously UK Anti-Doping Association, their rules of drug testing are different from VADA. So I think we've talked about this before, but VADA do 365 testing, so it's like all year round testing. So their definition of in competition for an athlete, a boxer, is all year round. You're always in competition, because if you're not fighting, you're either in camp or you're just in the gym, right? So if you're on steroids or any other kind of performance enhancing drug, it's going to benefit you, right? If you're taking roids for a camp or before camp to build up your strength, you're going to go into camp stronger, right?
Yeah.
If you're taking roids, through a camp actively, you're going to go into the fight stronger. So you're always in competition. Whereas UCAD, if you look at their rules, and I learned this when Billy Joe Saunders got popped, their rules are you're only in competition. I think it was either the fight night and the day before fight night, or the week of fight night. That's it. It's not all year round. So everything outside of that week or that night, I can't remember what the official term is out of competition. So then the rules between in competition and out competition, and what you can take in competition and out competition, are different. So there's a lot of fighters in the UK who know they can exploit that, right? Because technically out of competition, which is in camp, you could be fucking on all sorts, clenbuterol, whatever you want. And then
come fight week, you go clean, and then you can fight. Nothing.
Yeah, and that's the rules. And for me, that's why UCAD is nowhere near VADA. Like, I know Eddie Hearn always talks about how good UCAD is. AJ always gets tested, blah blah this. But the rules for in and out of competition are just terrible for UCAD. Whereas VADA, it's just blanket. It's like you're always in competition, 365 every day. You're in competition.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it should be. You can't just you can't just pick and choose when you want to. It's like, oh yeah, I'll have a little dabble for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then I'll go clean. Nothing gets said.
Yeah, it's just I just don't like that about UCAD. But I'm just conscious. I don't want to kind of bash Dillian Whyte. Obviously, a lot of people are jumping on the bandwagon. And to be fair, when I'm looking at a lot of the comments on Twitter and stuff, a lot of people are supporting him. Like, all the kind of Matchroom fanboys are jumping to his defense. I think for now you can only stay neutral until the facts come out, but I hope they do. And to me, as I said, if he did fail a drug test of any type, or there was a trace amount, whatever it was, the issue is not him failing the drug test, because for me he'll just be another doper. It's the fact that Oscar Rivas wasn't notified. That's the alarming thing. I don't think Rivas, he should have been given the option to know that information. Period.
Yeah, of course. He should have, or at least his corner.
Exactly. And then they can make the decision whether they want to fight. My theory, based on the alleged information we have, is that if it's proven that there was a trace amount of some sort, or there was a discrepancy with the test, my theory is that there was a lot of pressure on Eddie Hearn not to pull the fight. That's my theory, and that's why he plowed ahead with it. Obviously, with support of Dillian Whyte and the others. But yeah, it's a difficult topic. It's obviously there's a lot going on, so I guess we just got to keep our eye on it. Just on the kind of wider heavyweight division, Mike. Obviously, conscious that we haven't caught up for months. Lots have happened. Just going back to the kind of we mentioned AJ briefly. Obviously, a couple of months back, he had his kind of big American debut. Coming.
What a nightmare.
Coming to America, one of my favorite films. That
Yep.
was a tagline used on the marketing
Yep.
posters. And then obviously he went over there and got beaten by Andy Ruiz. Just a question on that, Mike. Just throwing it out there. What were your thoughts on the fight? Were you surprised by the outcome? And what's your thoughts on the rematch, especially on the location and what will happen in the fight?
Okay, well, I was absolutely shocked. I was here with my boys. We had a good night, food as you do. Getting down to the fight, first couple of rounds, yeah, AJ seemed on it. We was all talking about, foregone conclusion. Just going to be a matter of time. When he knocks him, Ruiz goes down. Knocked him down. First time ever been knocked down in his career. He looked like staggered. We thought, AJ's going to finish him off now. Then it's all of a suddenly, my man comes out with one punch on the back of the temple. AJ's all over the place. Next couple of rounds, AJ's getting his ass whooping. Then it comes to, what was it, the 8th round or something? That after the 4th embarrassing knockdown, the ref stops it, and then he's looking like, what ref? What ref? What? But what got it to me is when you're looking at your corner and he's asking his corner man, why am I feeling like this? What do I do? There's serious problems there. So as for the rematch, boy, I would like to say that AJ does the business, but considering Ruiz had about 8 weeks or 6 weeks notice, and he done that in that much shorter space of time, my man's gonna have a full camp now. So, boy, I can't honestly say 100% that AJ is going to win the rematch. I mean, me being a betting person, I think the kind of Ruiz starts favourite. But AJ's got a lot to learn because if he loses, where does AJ go after this? Where does he go? I don't know where AJ is going to go after this because obviously Usyk's going to be number one challenger for the WBO, depending on what happens with Dillian. Obviously, Wilder's got to get through Ortiz for the rematch, and then he's scheduled in to fight Fury. So that's his next 2 fights booked up. So I really don't know. And Andy's already come out and said, look, the rematch ain't going to be in the UK. So again, I don't know how that one's going to play up. Who's got the? We don't know what was signed in the contract, obviously, for the rematch. So yeah, that's going to be quite interesting location. US is a possibility, but as far as Andy's saying, the rematch ain't going to be in the UK. So yeah, at the moment, I want AJ to win, obviously, but at the moment, I can't hand on heart and say definitely that AJ is going to win the rematch.
Yeah, it's a bit of a funny one, really, isn't it? Because I guess for me, going into that fight, I knew Andy Ruiz was good, but I didn't think that he would pose any significant issues to AJ. I thought AJ would have had enough in terms of physical attributes, in terms of boxing, boxing ability to do a job on Ruiz. Not necessarily knock him out, but just comfortably win.
He fought the wrong fight though, in my opinion. If he kept behind the jab like he did for the early couple of rounds, he would have won that all day. But
yeah,
because he got into Ruiz's fight, it played it right into his hands. It turned it into a street fight, and AJ lost it.
Yeah, it's for me, it just didn't go how I thought. But I thought Andy Ruiz, game plan wise, fought a good fight. I thought he was he was sharp on the night. He got dropped, and I think what was important for me is that he came back calm and composed. He didn't get flustered by being dropped for the first time. Handled it well, and then came back. And what kind of developed? I know AJ, he didn't really recover from being dropped the way that Ruiz did.
No.
But it just seemed like stylistically, AJ was having issues with one, the shorter man, and really the timing of Ruiz, because there was a lot of times they got into exchanges, and Ruiz just seemed to time him. He just like they were just throwing punches at the same time, and Ruiz would be winning all the exchanges because his timing looked better. His punches looked crisper. Now, whether that was down to the fact that AJ hadn't fully recovered or Ruiz has got his number, time will tell. But yeah, definitely shops. Well, Mike, question for you on the location. How important is that for you? You know, AJ going back to the States and rectifying the situation, or are you happy for the fight just to happen in the UK because he gave Ruiz a shot originally?
I think he should go to the US and put on a brilliant show. I think the only way he's going to redeem himself if he knocks Ruiz inside 5 rounds and he makes it look spectacular. And if he does that, I think there's no better place than the States, because it also sends out a warning to Wilder as well, saying, okay, look, you know what? I had a hiccup, but I come back like all like true champions do that are worthy. They always come back better time around, second time around. So I think if he wants to get any kind of credibility back, I think he should fight back in the States, in Madison Square Gardens, and just go out all out attack and put on a devastating performance and get Ruiz out there early and send out a statement. I think that's the only way he's going to do it. If he wins on points, I don't think his credibility is restored as much as it should have been, because then everyone's been thinking, okay, the first fight was a blip, but yet he still struggled in the second fight. So for me, the only way he's going to like get himself back to how he should be, then he's got to do it in the US, and he's got to knock him out in spectacular fashion, like a bit like what Wilder done to Brazil.
Yeah, that's a big thing for me. The location is key for me. I know it's 70-80% certain that they're going to fight in the UK. Obviously, off the back of the Dillian Whyte situation this week, Ruiz came out and said, fuck that, he's not going to the UK, he doesn't want to get screwed. But from what we understand, from what Mr. Money Hearn is telling us, contractually, they control the location. So, Team Al Heyman and Team Andy Ruiz don't really have much of a say. And we all know Al Heyman's a very smart guy, but if it's in black and white in a contract, there's not much you can do. For me, though, Joshua winning the rematch in the UK has less value than him winning the rematch in the States. And I know that sounds ridiculous and controversial, but for me, if you went out, because he went out to America, he was basically going out there to fight, one, to obviously build a DAZN network, but two, to build his own profile, to push the agenda for the Wilder fight. And for me, kind of retreating back to the UK after, being embarrassed and winning a rematch against Ruiz, it doesn't hold the weight if he'd done it in Vegas or New York and back in the MSG for me. So who do you think is going to win that fight, Mike? Just out of interest, a rematch. Are you in the camp where you think Ruiz has got his number, or do you think AJ was just affected by the punch and, with his senses back together, he will dispatch him?
I'm hoping that AJ puts on a spectacular performance and get rid of him early, but there's always one fighter that always has your number, and it just looks like Ruiz has got AJ's number. I mean, if you look at the people that obviously AJ's got rid of, Klitschko, all right, people can debate he was over the hill Klitschko, but yet he's still done the business. Parker took in the distance, whereas Dillian Whyte knocked him out. Obviously, Charles Martin, when he first won the belt, that was just a Mickey Mouse fight. I don't really rate that boy at all. Obviously, then he come up against Ruiz now. I mean, he fought Takam. That was a tough fight for him, but he passed him. Povetkin, he dealt with him. And then little Ruiz, who no one gave an absolute chance to, shocked the world. So, I don't know. It's a bit of a 50-50 one, that really. I think if AJ goes with the same game plan, he loses. If he fights smart, which he did for the first couple of rounds, to stay behind his jab and just use the power when he needs to, I think he wins. But I think there's more to lose if AJ wins than if he loses. So I think he's got no choice but to win. He needs to pull out the stops and just do whatever it takes to win. But also,
I agree. Do you think that you made a really good point, Mike, that Deontay Wilder obviously has 2 fights on the schedule? Do you think he will cancel his fight with Fury to basically get the fight with Andy Ruiz?
Well, that's what I've been saying to my mates at work. Because obviously they're both in the same with Al Heyman. I had a funny feeling that obviously Wilder would get rid of Ortiz in the rematch, and then something would happen, or that fight would get cancelled, and then Wilder and Ruiz get it on, and then the old Wilder comes with his bomb squad, knocks out Ruiz, takes off 4 belts. Cheers, thank you very much. But at the moment, in the next 6 to 9 months with the heavyweight division, anything can happen. Anything can happen.
Yeah,
there's no such thing as like calf dying guarantees. I mean, no one saw Tyson Fury signing an £80 million deal with ESPN. How the hell Frank Warren managed to pull that coup, I do not know. But then again, it just says before, Frank Warren just keeps quiet in the background and then only announces things when it's worth announcing. He doesn't like put things out there just for the sake of putting something out there, whereas Eddie Hearn seems to. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting next 6 to 9 months on how the fights unfold, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting one. I personally think if Deontay Wilder gets rid of Ortiz pretty handedly, I think that they'll look to make the Andy Ruiz fight ahead of the Fury fight. And I'll tell you why. I think that it's a perfect opportunity to give Wilder all the 4 belts, right? And if Wilder gets in a position where he has all the 4 belts, he then becomes very powerful because he's undisputed champion. His bargaining power goes through the roof.
Yep.
And then he holds all the cards because that's what, any of the heavyweights want, right? They want all the belts, right? So I personally think he will because I don't like what I'm hearing out of both camps. I know Deontay Wilder made the announcement that the Fury fight was signed in the run up to the AJ Ruiz fight, so it was that fight week. But what I'm hearing is that it's not. I don't think it is because when you talk to when you hear Bob Arum talking and we hear Fury, kind of talking, the dates seem up in the air. It doesn't seem like it's solid concrete. Maybe it's like a gentleman's agreement, but I think that can be just swept really quick.
Yeah.
And I think that what will happen is if he gets, as I said, if he gets rid of Ortiz, they'll look to make that Ruiz fight if Ruiz wins the rematch. And I think they'll look to get Wilder the undisputed champion and then look to make the Fury fight or the Joshua fight. I don't think they'll look at the Joshua fight because they won't need to fight Joshua.
No, because he's a picture.
Yeah, so I think
he can't afford to lose. He can't afford to lose his fight, AJ.
No, he can't because for me, if he does lose, I mean, AJ's not going to go back down to European level. And I'm not trying to be dramatic, but it potentially, and maybe retirement's a strong word, but where do you go? AJ's obviously world level. He's not going to be wanting to fight the likes of David Price and David Chisora. So where does he go from there? Yeah, it's
he can't afford to lose this fight financially and division. Well, any other way, he just can't afford to lose.
Yeah, he can't, mate. He can't. But yeah, I guess we'll see and find out what happens with Ruiz in a rematch.
Be an interesting fight.
Moving on, Mike, to the welterweight scene. Obviously, similarly, a lot's happening in that division. You've got obviously Manny Pacquiao recently defeated Keith Thurman, so maybe we can start off with that. What was your thoughts on that fight if you did catch that, and what should just your general thoughts on the kind of welterweight division?
I've always gone with the welterweights. That division is just so entertaining. There's so many world class fighters in that division, and Manny Pacquiao. I mean, what can you say? That man's CV. I mean, I thought obviously Mayweather's CV's got some names on it, but Pacquiao, mate, he's ducked no one, and he's basically fought everyone. I mean, how many times is he a world champion now? 8 or 9 weight world champion, something like that. That's just ludicrous. At 40 years old, he's like a fine wine. He just gets better with age. And I didn't catch the whole fight, but what I see of it, he was just superb. The only downside I would say about Pacquiao on his record, he fought Mayweather 5 years too late. That would be the only criticism I would have of Pacquiao for his CV. But apart from that, yeah, undoubtedly one of the greatest fighters of all time. Hall of Fame, legend. Yeah, he's up there.
Do you? I know a lot of people suspect Manny for PEDs. Are you part of that camp?
I don't know. There's a case for it and there's a case not for it. I don't know. If he is, then he's a cheating little scumbag. If he's not, then mate, I'll tip my hat to you.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because a lot of people are saying that he looks obviously a lot sharper. He's looking sharper than he did, a couple of years back when he was fighting the likes of Marquez and obviously the Jeff Horn loss and the Bradley loss. And people said in this Furman fight that he was back to his best. So obviously there's always going to be suspicions. Also, you've got Porter fighting Spence. Keen to hear your thoughts on that, Mike. How you think that fight's going to go? For me, I think Spence does a number on Porter, and I think he's going to want to make a statement, a very big statement. I know the Garcia fight, he showed us a new side. You know, he showed us his boxing skills, and that it's not all kind of blood and thunder. But I think he's going to want to go back to that style, and I think he's going to want to be the first man to stop Porter. So what's your thoughts on that fight and the welterweight scene? Obviously, you've got Crawford on the other side of the street with Top Rank, who holds the WBO. What's your thoughts on the division?
I'm with you on that one. I think Spence wins all day long. Me personally, I think Spence is a second pound for pound on the planet at the moment, just behind Lemachenko. I mean, as everyone knows, obviously I will shout Kell Brook to the high hills, but obviously Spence dismantled with Brook in superior fashion, and he's another one. He seems to be getting better and better with each performance. And I think, me personally, I think it won't be long before he unifies that division. I think he's probably the best one, or at least number two in that division. But yeah, I rate Errol Spence highly, very highly.
Yeah, I just think he does a number on Porter. I think if you look at Porter's last few fights, he fought Ugas, which was it was a very close fight. Some people say Ugas won. He fought Granados as well, and I put money on Porter actually stopping Granados in that fight. Even though Granados is tough, I just thought Porter would have too much for him, and Porter for me struggled in that fight. He didn't look that good. Obviously lost to Furman, but beat Danny. Did he beat Danny? Yeah, he beat Danny. Sorry, in a very close fight. And arguably some say he lost. So for me, Porter hasn't looked that good. I would probably say since the Brook fight, which I know was like what 5-6 years ago, and obviously their careers have gone in different directions. But I think Porter before that Brook loss had an air of invincibility. You know, people were calling him the welterweight Mike Tyson. He was running through people. He destroyed Malignaggi, and there was a lot of hype. And then I think Brook kind of showed the blueprint on how to beat him. If you can box smart and box clever, use your jab, use angles, kind of keep him at the end of a jab, he can smother his own work. And I think since then, although he has had victories, he just hasn't looked the same. And I back Spence. I think there's good value in picking Spence to stop him.
Yeah,
Be the first one to stop him.
he's a class fighter. I mean, he can jab, he can fight on the inside, he can fight on the outside. He's got power. He can end the fight quickly. He can go the distance. I think probably Spence is one of the most complete boxers in that division at the moment. If not, well, like I said, I'll probably put him as number two, pound for pound behind Lemachenko. Speaking of Lemachenko, his fight's got announced for, is it the 1st of August? Lemachenko and Campbell.
Yeah, it is.
For the WBC vacant Ring Magazine WBA WBO belts, if I remember rightly. Yeah, Lemachenko's got the WBO and the WBA and Ring Magazine, and the WBC is vacant.
Yeah, he has.
I mean, the way he took out Corolla. I mean, I did rate Corolla. I mean, he's been in some battles, but he took out Corolla like, mate, you're a novice. I think that was like a sparring for him. He just beat him up.
Yeah, different levels, mate. Honestly, different levels. I thought he, Crowder was finished anyway for me
Yeah,
after that kind of
kind of
Linares
money fight.
fight.
He must have felt he had no chance. I think that was just a payday for Corella.
Yeah, Eddie. It was just lamb to the slaughters, wasn't it? Eddie Hearn
Yeah,
just threw him in there just to watch him take a beating.
but with
But
all due
yeah, I
respect,
mean,
I can't see Campbell doing anything. I can see that one ending very early.
yeah, no, I mean Campbell's a good. He's a good fighter. He's a better fighter than Anthony Crowder, in my opinion. Obviously been unfortunate not to win a world title. Lost a decision to Linares. And early on in his career, lost to Mendy, which was a bit of a shock. But I mean, Lomachenko for me is just levels above.
Yeah,
Is just levels above. Um, Campbell. For me,
yeah.
he's just yeah, it's
I
levels
can see
above.
that going inside 5 rounds, knockout or stoppage. I think
Yeah,
once Lemachenko lands a few lefts and rights and the speed at it, I think Campbell's going to think, nah, mate, I can't do this for 12 rounds. Fuck that. I don't want no part of this.
yeah, I see Lomachenko winning that comfortably. If I'm honest, I don't see any kind of
But I'd like
massive.
to see, I'd like to see the odds on Campbell, though, for like a stoppage or a knockout.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just don't
Uh,
see it.
Eddie Hearn, for me, Eddie Hearn has and this is not, Eddie Hearn, knock Eddie Hearn podcast, but Eddie Hearn has he's got a history of, you know, wanting to bring, clearly as a business model, wanting to bring, the best names in world boxing to the UK, which is great for the fans, and happily sacrifice its fighters. And I know that sounds really brutal, but I'll give you a few examples. So um, you had Kell Brook versus Golovkin, for example. It, Brook had a very small chance, but it was very slim, right?
Yeah.
And originally, Eddie wanted to make the fight with Eubank versus Golovkin. Eubank lost his pen, and then he needed a replacement, right? Now, I've always been of the opinion that Kell Brook's been woefully mismanaged. Partly down to him, but a lot of it is down to Matchroom and Eddie Hearn as well. And Eddie Hearn didn't have to put him in that fight because Kell Brook had 1 in 20 chance of winning that fight. The odds were stacked against him. First fight at that weight against the arguably one of the best, hardest hitting middleweights in the division. It's not. It doesn't look good on paper, right? And to get Golovkin over to the UK, he sacrificed Kell Brook. He put him there and said, "Look, we'll make the fight just to get him over there, right? Because he knows it will sell." I think it's a similar thing with the Lomachenko and Campbell. Eddie Hearn knows deep down Campbell hasn't got a chance, but it's a good reason to bring Lomachenko to the UK and obviously expose that market. Get the pay-per-views in. Same thing happened with Usyk and Belly. Deep down, Uncle Eddie knew Belly didn't have a chance. Usyk's was a big star, came over, pay-per-view star, came over and demolished Belly. So Eddie Hearn's not scared to bring the big boys over and sacrifice some of his dead weight at Matchroom just to get some pay per view sales. But I think this is just another case of that, really. Just wanted to talk, Mike. Just lastly, obviously a shortened show today. Just lastly on the kind of deaths in the sport, and obviously we've had, the PD situation with Dillian Whyte, this week. What do you think as a sport enough's being done to protect fighters? I've been reading a lot in the last couple of weeks, and I don't know if you've seen these articles, but a lot of the kind of countries and the commissions don't, for example, have oxygen ringside. Don't have trained medical staff ringside as well, and I guess it's those moments in like end of fight and getting care, the length of that, which is vital. What's your thoughts on it? Because we've had two in a week, and that's not good enough, is it?
Yeah, I mean, that's like shocking. That's unheard of. I mean, that's the first time I think ever there's been like two deaths inside a week in the boxing ring. I think they should have oxygen on the sides at least so they can get like treated like very, very quickly. I mean, obviously there was that talk before about bringing head guards in place, but then it defeats the whole object of being obviously a boxing of a contact sport. So again, it's one of the reasons for yes, there should be more safety, but then it's going to go back to, yeah, it's a sport. The boxers know the risks, but if it's turned out to be obviously like the Dillian Whyte scenario and Rivas got killed in the ring, that's, like I said, that's a whole different ball game. You should get banned for life. There shouldn't be no ramifications. But I think the leniency regarding use of drugs is far too lenient in boxing. I think if you're found guilty and there's no reasonable doubt that you took the drug, banned for life, no excuses. That's how it should be. You shouldn't do this like, oh yeah, do this 2-year program, etc., etc. No, if you're a cheat, you're a cheat. Same as in athletics. If you get banned for taking it and it costs you whatever, yes, you get stripped of your medal and you get banned for life. You shouldn't take a 2-year ban and then be all right, and then you come back 2 years later and then you win a gold medal. It's just like, no. If you're a competitor and you've worked hard all your life and not took no drugs, and yet you're competing with somebody that's been a drug user, been found guilty, and yet you're still allowed to come back in the sport and you win and you beat me. No, I'm not going to feel too impressed about that. That can't happen. That's just wrong. That's my opinion on that side of things anyway.
No, I agree. There's no place for drug cheats, and I think they need to they need to do more. It's just not good enough, mate. Honestly, it's not good enough. Just seeing these deaths and people with brain damage and stuff, and you've then got drug takers in the sport. They're going out there and effectively killing people. I don't see any difference between someone committing a murder, shooting someone, and someone taking performance enhancing drugs knowingly and then going to fight in a ring. You're basically armed. So yeah, it's not a good situation. We've had a shortened show today, Mike, just the two of us, but I think we've done a good job. Is there anything else you want to kind of add, finish off with before we kind of wrap up?
No, not really. I think we've covered pretty much everything that we needed to cover.
Cool. So so let's wrap up. So it's been a really good one, and we're hoping to be back more regularly. I know we haven't had a show in 6 months, which is quite long. We're all obviously living quite busy lives, but we're hoping to be back more regularly. We're hoping to get back to the routine of doing one podcast a month and have the full entourage, the likes of Idris, AO, Chris, and Mega Mike joining us in future sessions. But for those who have joined us today and listened in, thank you. Really appreciate it. As I said, we'll be back with more frequency. As I said, whether or not you agree with the opinions on today, please just give us a thumbs up. It gives us obviously extra visibility and help support the channel. And as I said at the beginning, if you want to follow us on Twitter and on Instagram, the handle is at BusyBee Boxing. We are out. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.